was even bigger and greyer and colder. He often marvelled at the extremes of discomfort and misery that children were expected to endure without the slightest squeak of protest or complaint. Now, as he followed Osborne across the broad hallway, time-polished flagstones, a set of antlers on a plaque, dim portraits of Osborne ancestors lining the walls on either side, it seemed to him the air was even icier here than it was outside. In a cavernous stone grate, 3 sods of damp turf, arranged in a tripod, smouldered sullenly, giving out no detectable warmth. It had snowed continuously for 2 days, and this morning everything appeared to stand in hushed amazement before the spectacle of such expanses of unbroken whiteness on all sides. People said it was unheard of, that they had never known weather like it, that it was the worst winter in living memory. But they said that every year when it snowed, and also in years when it didn't snow. The library had the look of a place that no one had been in for a very long time, and today it wore a put-upon aspect, as though indignant that its solitude should be so suddenly and so rudely violated. The glass-fronted bookcases lining the walls stared before them coldly, and the books stood shoulder to shoulder in an attitude of mute resentment. The mullioned windows were set into deep granite embrasures, and snowlight glared through their numerous tiny leaded panes. Strafford had already cast a sceptical eye on the architecture of the place. Arts and crafts fakery, he had thought straight off with a mental sniff. He wasn't a snob, not exactly, only he liked things to be left as they were, and not got up as what they could never hope to be. But then, what about himself? Was he entirely authentic? He hadn't missed the surprised glance with which Colonel Osborne, opening the front door, had scanned him from head to toe and back again. It was only a matter of time before he would be told, by Colonel Osborne or someone else in the house, that he didn't look much like a policeman. He was used to it. Most people meant it as a compliment, and he tried to take it in that spirit, though it always made him feel like a confidence trickster whose trick had been exposed. What people meant was that he didn't look like an Irish policeman. Detective Inspector Strafford, first name St. John, it's pronounced St. John, he would wearily explain, was 35 and looked 10 years younger. He was tall and thin, gangly was the word, with a sharp, narrow face, eyes that in certain lights showed as green, and hair of no particular colour, a lock of which had a tendency to fall across his forehead like a limp, gleaming wing, and which he would push back with a characteristic stiff gesture involving all 4 fingers of his left hand. He wore a grey 3-piece suit that, like all his clothes, appeared to be a size or more too big for him, a narrowly knotted wool tie, a fob watch on a chain. It had been his grandfather's, a grey gabardine trench coat and a grey wool scarf. He had taken off a soft black fedora and now held it by the brim at his side. His shoes were soaked from melted snow. He didn't seem to notice the puddles forming under him on the carpet. There was not as much blood as there should have been, given the wounds that had been inflicted. When he looked more closely, he saw that someone had mopped up most of it. The priest's body had been tampered with too. He lay on his back, hands joined on his breast. His legs were aligned neatly side by side. All that was lacking was a set of rosary beads twinned around his knuckles. Say nothing for now, Strafford told himself. There would be time enough for the awkward questions later on. On the floor above the priest's head stood a tall brass candlestick. The candle in it had burned out completely, and the wax had flowed all down the sides. It looked, bizarrely, like a frozen cascade of champagne. "Damnedest thing, eh?" the colonel said, touching it with the toe of his shoe. "Gave me the shivers, I can tell you. As if there'd been a black mass, or something." Strafford had never heard of the murder of a priest before, not in this country, or at least not since the days of the Civil War, which had ended while he was still a toddler. It would be a huge scandal when the details got out, if they got out. He didn't want to think about that just yet. Lawless, that was his name, you say? Colonel Osborne, frowning down at the dead man, nodded. Father Tom, Lawless, yes. Or just Father Tom, which is what everyone called him. Very popular in these parts. Quite the character.